Our next speaker graduated with a fine arts degree, major in painting, from the University of the Philippines Diliman, and taught himself computing on the side. His last corporate role was as the manager and lead software architect for the systems development team of NTT Data Philippines. Aside from application architecture, his current focus is on object-oriented domain modeling, and the creation of custom domain-specific language or DSL tools. To give a demo on Jetbrains MPS, please welcome Mr. Noli San Jose.
Hello, good morning to everyone. Thank you for attending the session, Creating Your Own Interface Prototyping Tool, an introduction to DSL development in JetBrains MPS. This is going to be a 2-hour session, so it's early in the morning. I hope you have taken your breakfast. So I actually was surprised. There's a lot of attendees. No? Thank you for attending. Okay, so sinong kumain na ba kayo? Good morning, Jed, Arnel. Good morning, JR, JC, Makam, Randy, Honorato. Good morning to everyone. I don't know how many we are right now. I don't have a count, but it's quite a lot actually. Thank you for attending. Uh, we also have a few polls later, survey around four questions. I hope we can finish them. I'll be publishing them from time to time. Siguro let's start with number one. I have published natin number one. Okay. I'll give you a few seconds to answer our poll. What industry does your organization belongs to? So siguro countdown tayo. 10 seconds. I have my counter on the side. So 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay? Have you answered already? I'll give you five more. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Possible wala dyan yung ibang industries, no? I try to cram as much as I can because we're limited to 6 answers only. Okay, let's close the poll. Can we show the answer? Okay, so we have the answer here. Professional technical services, 50%. Banking, insurance, 28%. Manufacturing, logistics, distribution, real estate, 1.67%. Healthcare, 16.67%. Retail tourism, 3.3%. Hospital, automotive, mining, 0. Okay. Let's close this. Good combination. So marami sa professional and technical services. Okay. Before we continue, so let's show our presentation screen. Okay. So before we start, although it's already mentioned who I am, this is about me. So I'm currently application architect, as mentioned in the video, and software toolmaker focused on domain modeling. I started my IT career around 1999. I'm basically a self-taught developer up to the present. Okay, my last company is Entity Data. I have previous stints also with SQL Solutions, which was acquired, and now currently I think they're called StratPoint now. I was not able to transition to StratPoint. Before being an IT in IT, I used to be a college art instructor and practitioner also at the bank from 1991 to 1999. So I shifted around 1999. I'm a graduate of the UP Diliman College of Fine Arts. So you can reach me at my Tech Hub or Mastodon account, https techhub.social, nolly's at nollysj. I can also give you my contact number if you want later. Okay, so the outline of our presentation is definition and types of DSLs or domain-specific languages. The DSLs we have known, which could be familiar to everyone. What are the tools for creating domain-specific languages? Real-world projects created using MPS. MPS is the tool that we are going to use to create DSL. Then we're going to go to the meat of the presentation itself, which is the demo how to use MPS. We're going to create something like I don't know if you're familiar with Balsamic or something like Figma or Axure RP. We're not going to achieve the level of professional work of that those tools, but we can show you how to start. After that, a few reminders after the demo on something to refresh your memories about what you have learned, and if you have time, we can do FAQ. Uh, During the session, you might have a few questions, and what you can do is just put them in the chat. What I can do is definitely look at them. It might not be during the session, but could be after. I will try to answer them. If we run out of time, even after the session, we can go to the lounge and look for the table that's allocated for this session, and we can continue there definitely, which is probably during the time that you're taking your lunch already. Okay, so let's proceed to the next slide. So before we continue, as a domain-specific language creator, sometimes we confuse the word user because we're a user of the Jetbrains MPS, the tool that we're going to use. But in terms of the discussion about DSLs, it's good to make a distinction between two types of users. One is the language engineer, which is you, if you're going to create the DSL yourself. You're the one who creates the DSL, and you're the main user of JetBrains MPS, the tool. The other one is the user, which is the actual user of your actual rich client platform. The rich client platform is the terminology used by JetBrains to refer to basically the executable that's created from your application. Okay, so the IDE, basically you can create your own IDE later, although it's a bit difficult from the tool. We refer to them as the user, you as the language designer. Okay, so what is a domain in domain-specific languages? Okay, a domain is not the internet domain that we are familiar with in IT. The domain is a particular interest, activity, or type of knowledge. So basically, it's something closer to subject matter. I think you can call it subject matter. So if you have subject matter experts, we call SMEs, we can say their domain is what we're trying to create tools for. So if you are in the banking, professional services, you're creating tools for those domains. Okay. So what is a DSL? A DSL is compared to a GPL or a general purpose language. A DSL is basically a computer language specialized to a particular or specific domain. So as we mentioned, no, it could be in the finance, banking, manufacturing, logistics. Those are your domains. Or subject matter experts will be very familiar with those domains. As system designers, what we want is to develop systems specifically for them. Okay, so what you're going to create is not Visual Basic, it's not C Sharp, it's not Java, it's not PHP, but a tool that's specific to your subject matter experts. Okay, so this is in contrast to the GPL, again, which is your Visual Basic, C Sharp, Java, which is something generic that you can use across all domains. If you're familiar with Martin Fowler, Fowler created two types of distinctions. This is not very popular, but this is one way of looking at types of DSLs. One is internal. Internal DSLs are created inside your C Sharp, your Java, your Visual Basic. You create something like your what we call, if you're familiar, probably you've heard about fluent interfaces, which is a sample on the screen, wherein you have a function called, say, in this example, you have order engine class, which has an initialize function, then followed by configure function, followed by customer function, followed by using function, add line item, update inventory. So using this format of Fluent interfaces, we can approximate uh, a domain-specific language, but using uh, a GPL like C Sharp or Java. Okay. So if you have done, probably some of you have done something like this, you can probably type it in the chat room. If you have done it, I will read it later. Uh, if you're familiar with Fluent interfaces, what each individual functions does is create a modified version of the object you're manipulating for each successive call. And then at the end, you can say that's when it eventually processes the entire thing. So it's very easy to look at, to read, and to read. So it looks like you're talking about the subject matter itself. Okay. The other type of DSL is what we call an external DSL. These are the more commonly known DSLs, no? Because it has its own traditional syntax and its own parser. Okay. But before we go to the sample for DSL, probably you're asking why create a DSL at all, no? And the most, probably from my perspective, the most famous or the answer could be for productivity. Okay, why? If you look at these familiar examples of DSLs on the screen, you'll see that it targets specific uh, domains. Like, for example, we have SQL, which is structured query language for database manipulation. Either you have DDL or data definition language inside SQL, or data manipulation language inside SQL also. So you can either manipulate or define the structure. You can also query. The same way with HTML. So HTML is basically the lingua franca for the web. No? So you just having these two languages, those two DSLs, you can assume that you will not use HTML to extract data or manipulate data, because that's the SQL's forte. The same way that you're not going to use SQL to manipulate uh, web pages. So just having those two gives you an idea that there's a purpose to creating DSL. Other examples are regular expressions, Gradle, which is a configuration tool, Gherkin, which is a testing tool, and some at the end I'm putting COBOL there. Although I haven't programmed, I'm old enough, but I haven't touched COBOL. I'm putting a exclamation mark, question mark there, and smiley, because some people say it's a DSL, some people says it's a GPL. No? So the jury is still out on that one. Okay, so having given you a few examples of the DSLs that we've known, these are the tools that I know of for creating DSLs. Again, what we are going to discuss is the number one in the list, MPS, which is actually Meta Programming System from JetBrains. I don't know how many of you are Java developers. Okay, if you're a Java developer, you're definitely familiar with JetBrains. You're probably using IntelliJ. Okay, so if you're a Visual Basic C# developer or Visual Studio developer, from time to time you might be also using Rider, which is also a JetBrains tool. Okay, another tool for creating DSL is Xtext from the Eclipse Foundation. This is also a popular tool among language engineers. No? I haven't touched this yet. This is very foreign to me. The same with the other one, which is Freon. Freon is currently renamed. It used to be projectit.org. So they renamed it to Freon, and their website is freon for DSL.dev. Somebody says, Brian Ashley Novicio says Java. So Java, what's that? Java GIF? What's that? Okay. The other one is Rascal from rascal-mpl.org. Okay, so those are things that you might want to investigate. I don't know if you might want to put in the chat whether you're familiar with any of them, especially with Xtext. Okay, let's go to a few real-world projects or cases using MPS. This list is available from JetBrains website. I took these samples from there. So these are mostly European companies targeting European organizations or companies also, even governments. The first one is Agile Law Execution Factory, which is a DSL to implement taxes. No? The client is Dutch Tax and Customs Administration. Probably this is closer to our BIR or customs, probably. I'm not really sure. Uh, and talking about goals, their goal when they created the DSL is to adapt to frequent changes in regulations and policies. Just like our BIR, no? From time to time, there will be changes. And it might be difficult for developers to create modifications to their existing production systems to accommodate the changes in the new legislation. So what this group did is to create a DSL just to cater to these frequent changes in legislations. Below you have at the bottom of the deck, you have a sample, a little bit of tax rule, what they call a tax rule. I reverse engineer a little bit of what it means from my understanding, and it says something like, if the user is or the target user is born after 1946 and the taxable amount is less than or equal to max amount allowed, then do these things. No? So it's basically something like a rule engine. Okay. The other one is DSL for creating UI and processes or methods for diagnostics for mental health, education, and treatment. So this is a little bit health related. The output is a Java code for Spring Boot web app. Okay, so it's basically a web app. It's a code generator for a web application. And this web application probably is emitting code naman for mobile client. So the DSL is creating web application, and the web application is generating code for their mobile application. Okay, so you have your screenshot a little bit blurred, and it's text heavy. There's an attempt to colorizing the screen to make it a little bit appetizing to the user, but it's very text heavy, as most DSLs are. The other one is a DSL for clinical trial design. I don't know if you can see the medyo malabo yung ginawa nilang color. It's Clario. Clario is the company who created the DSL. And this is basically a configurator. And they want to convert from one format to another. It also, aside from that, they want to automate the document generation, no, for compliance purposes. So I would assume there's a body that also requests for compliance. So they created a tool to partly address that requirement. So you have two screenshots here of the UI of the IDE that they created to address this requirement, this code. If you notice so far, medyo dalawa na kagad is health related kasi marami siguro talagang changes sa rules. No? This one is for automotive domain, no? Mga kotse. They call it ARC-E or ARC-E siguro, Architecture Modeling Framework for the Automotive Domain. They have a lot of goals for when they created this tool, and one among this is to minimize duplicate information, because they have so many tools that they're using, and it's creating duplication. And so therefore, it's also decentralized yung content. That's why their goal is to centralize the content. And then integrate several generic system and configuration tools into one. No? So para ma-consolidate. It also simplify integration of new feature requests. So if there are new versions that they want to create based on the request, it simplifies it because it's now under one tool. So it's also minimize semantic or the meaning between terminologies among across tools. No? So if tool one says customer means this and tool two means customer means something else, it creates a confusion between the users, and therefore they want to consolidate it and create. Okay, sa Joselito Jojo Paderes mentioned Plant UML and other diagram as code tools are good example of DSL usage. Correct. It's good that you mentioned that, Jojo, because if we have time, we can show you how the tool uses Plant UML also. The tool that I'm presenting. Thank you for that info, Jojo. Okay. So let's go to the last sample, and this is the one we're going to present because this is the one that I created since 2000. Oh, Michael Dula also mentioned. Uh, Thank you. I often use PlantUML and Mermaid. That's good. Meron na tayong okay to. I hope we have time to discuss, to show you a little bit how we use PlantUML. So System Maker, the tool that I created. This is just the code name because I haven't uh, published yet the tool. Still beta. Has components for designers, for entities, or your domains, objects, scenarios. Basically, System Maker is an end-to-end system development tool from the front end all the way to the back end. Okay, so it has to have designers for entities, scenarios, user interface, which is the one we're going to start today a little bit. The sample that we're going to create today is based on the UI portion of the System Maker tool. We also have designer for events and requirements. No? So there's a little bit of requirements engineering built in. So the output could be anything. Right now, we can show you a little bit of the basic HTML, but we're targeting, as a web developer myself, I'm actually targeting Blazor for now. Okay, so aside from basic HTML, we can generate, or we want to generate Blazor. Then we're generating a little bit of the APIs and the repository right now, and UML diagrams via Jojo and Michael Plant UML. Okay, so the UML diagrams is actually basically what we're happening is we're creating a code generator for Plant UML. Okay, tell me thumbs up tayo dyan, Jojo or Michael, kung if you like that idea. Okay, SQL DDL, you can generate data definition language scripts for creating your database tables. Okay, this is screenshot for the entity portion, the entity modular portion. Okay, these are the other screenshots. On the left side, you have the processes modular portion of the tool, where you have the view speaker, create speaker. I don't know if you can read it. In the middle, you have the UI, the UI designer, okay, the UI page designer. On the right, top right, you have the output. Yan, familiar sa inyo yan. Kasi that's a plant UML, that's a plant UML output. Okay, on the bottom, you have a sample screenshot from the Visual Studio version of the generated code. So we generated this code, put it in Visual Studio, and then screenshot. Okay, so what is Jetbrains MPS? MPS, again, is a tool for creating DSL. What is different from MPS against other language tool? I don't know if you're familiar with Antler. This one is a projectional editor. Okay, it's called MPS is called the projectional editor. A projectional editor is also called a structure editor. So if you look at the diagram on the right, you can see a little bit of the output from the various stages of the compilation. No? So you have the lexical analyzer producing tokens and symbols, syntax analyzer producing the AST or abstract syntax trees to be processed by semantic analyzer and modifying the AST or abstract syntax trees. No? So with the traditional compiler, you go through the process of doing your grammar, lexical analyzer, syntax analyzer, so on and so forth. With the projectional editor, you don't have to do lexical analysis and syntax analysis itself. It's doing direct manipulation of the AST or the trees that you see in the diagram. Okay, I'm not a compiler expert. Those are basically what I know. Okay, because I don't need to understand them when you're creating tools inside MPS. So you might ask, what's the storage format of the tool that when we're creating it? Do I need to have a database? Do I need to reference a database when creating inside MPS? The answer is no. You don't need to have connection to a database when you're creating MPS because XML is the underlying storage format. Okay, so basically, when you're modifying the nodes, we call them the nodes, the individual components of the AST. The nodes are the elements being connected by the lines. So basically, what MPS does is directly manipulating those nodes. That's why you'll be uh, hearing a lot from me the word nodes, nodes. Okay, so behind the scene, Java is the foundation language used by identified by JetBrains to be used as the foundation language for NPS. So they created a superset of Java, which they called base language. So on top of Java, they put base language and then added all the capabilities related to projectional editing functionalities, direct manipulation of nodes. Okay, so what is the structure of the MPS IDE? The structure of the MPS IDE, although you don't need to memorize this, you will be touching this as we go along, is what they call aspects. No? These are what they call aspects. The component parts of the IDE, they call them aspects. No? You can call them components or parts, but formally in the MPS grammar, we call them aspects. No? And you have aspect for structure, for editor, for behavior, for constraints, type system, and what we want at the end of the day for generator. Okay, we'll be touching each one of them individually later. No? Structure is your creating your classes. Basically, in the concept of in the grammar of MPS, it's called concepts instead of class. So if you are a developer, you're familiar with C# classes, Java classes, you develop that inside your editor in Visual Studio or IntelliJ. Here, you're doing it inside the structure aspect of MPS. Now, MPS is a full-blown IDE generator. So, having said that, you should be able to provide an IDE or an editor for your user. Okay, so that is done inside the editor aspect, wherein you create the user interface of your language. The behavior is basically, as you would expect, behavior is connected to uh, operations or methods or functions. No? Okay. Constraints is a set of rules that you can put on top of your concepts or your classes. Okay. Type system is a set of rules that you can put on top of multiple constraints. Basically, that's one way of me interpreting. There's no direct definition of these things in terms of that language, but this is my interpretation that constraints is basically a rule for a single concept. Type system is a rule across your concepts. Okay. Then generator is how you transform your model into another model or ultimately into a code or text. Okay. If you have questions, you can put them because we're going now a little bit to the demo portion. Okay, but before we go there, here are some reminders on what what is a little bit peculiar or unique to MPS is that it's very strict in terms of a few set of shortcuts, keyboard shortcuts, because you're going to use a lot of these shortcuts in during the time that you're creating your language. And part one of the combination is the control space, which is code completion. Code completion is basically something like your IntelliSense in your IDEs. Alt enter is something like your context menu, right click context menu. Okay. Shift control up or shift control down is if you have a list, if you have a list of items and you want to move your items, something like Excel, if you have Excel and you want to move items from the bottom to the top all the way up, you can do here shift control up or shift control down if you want to put it down. So it's very easy if you want to manipulate your nodes in terms of putting a list of items in a different sequence. Okay. So now let's go to the meat of the session, which is a demo how to use MPS. Okay. Any questions so far? Are you still there? Are you hungry? Okay. Before we continue, let's probably answer a few. Let's start with the poll. I'll give you 15 seconds to answer our poll number 2. What is your current role in your team or organization? Okay, a few numbers ramping up. Software architect, developer is ramping up. Same with quality professional, QAs, manager, management levels. We have a few managers here. We have also product designer or UX designer and C-level. We have a few. Thank you for attending. C-level founder or owner. Okay. Okay. So I hope you're done. I think this is very quick. Let's close the poll. Okay. I'll give you 5, 4. May mahabol pa. 3, 2, 1. Close. Okay. So I think the most is, I don't know, can we see it? We are not seeing it. It's okay. Okay, let's see it. We have a few managers here, 5%. Product designer, 1.3%. A lot are software architect developers. That's good. And then business analyst, SME. That's also good. And then QAs. Okay, very nice. Quality and CXO, C-level executives, founder or owner. We also have a few. Okay, close the poll. Let's switch to our tool. Okay. Grab this screen here. I thought you were seeing that. Okay, this is a portion, a subset of, it's a demo actually, of what we're going to accomplish today. But this is one portion, one project among 4 projects in a bigger project. And this is the bigger project. The bigger project is the system maker itself. What you see previously is a module of this. Just to give you a quick run through, but this is not the topic that we're doing today. This is just the overall system maker. This is the first stage that you're going to see. Somewhere in the middle. Ignore the one on the sides first. We can see a workspace, an overview of your screen. You can switch to uh, process orientation instead of UI. You can go to your APIs. So this is your API. Okay, I project. I use a little bit of my. This is ignore this black square. This is just a shortcut for me to not worry about going to the menus from time to time. This is my personal shortcut. Okay, let's go back. So you see the API, you see we also have a screen for defining your entities. This is your schedule, object, properties. So I hope you can see it. Is it too small? Just tell me if it is too small. Or, okay. So this is your entities. You can create your properties here. Once you created your entities, you can generate UML class diagrams from that. This is also the basis for SQL DDL scripts later. Aside from that, you have events. Okay, so this is the event designer. Okay. But our focus is closer to this one. This is a sample. I tried to model the SOFCON data structure and created a sample, just an approximation of uh, the user interface for uh, the SOFCON. Imagine that you're creating a page for SOFCON. This is going to be your list of schedule. And then you have your buttons for add, edit, delete, and view session details. Then you have another screen, probably a window, to create your text box when you're creating a new schedule, date, time, save, and cancel. Then probably a new session, so on and so forth. We can rebuild. You can let's see. You can view. Okay, this is the HTML that was created when we preview the text. Okay, let's close this. Sabihin nyo baka magic, no? The thing to do that is right-click, preview generated text, and then it will generate it. This is something that we can approximate throughout this entire session. Okay, it may not be as clear as this because there are some functionalities here that we cannot yet do, but this is the level of output that you can create once you are finished the entire user interface portion of your tool. Okay, we can probably go to quickly to the project files and see if we have a few sample. Wait, could be the file system. Softcon. Let's see if we have. uh, Okay, let's go to the location of this para makita natin from the file explorer. So once you build your project, okay, and you identified a set of outputs, say HTML, once you build your project in the sandbox, you generate the text output, and this is the sample output, the HTML code. Okay, you're not seeing it because it's in another screen. So I'll drag this for a while here. So this is the sample. Uh, I hope you can see it. Let me see, because I think I override my. Wait, I think I reused my softcon screen. So I might be, I don't know, wait, can you see it? I think you can see it. Okay. So this is the sample output from that. So we have here your grid. I don't know if we can approximate that in the sample that we're going to create today. And then you have your add, edit, and then save, cancel. These are all actual buttons. Okay. Okay, I'll jump this first because it's taking over my screen. Somebody's saying something. Okay, good morning. Sabi ni Kim Jan the Fiesta. Okay, let's go back to our. Okay, so we're not going to focus too much on System Maker. What we're going to do is try to do this from scratch, this screen. If you notice, this sample screen, let's say I want to create a new entry. I'll just say button. I'll just say what is the name of my button. This is softcon button, softcon 23. So displays your corresponding UI there. So if you change it to another item, you can generate the checkbox. Then you can, again, you can, I hope I have generated text. You can generate the HTML. Okay, that's what we're going to create today. So let's start. Before we do that, let's close this. So to create a project in MPS, you go to, of course, you install MPS from the website. This is an open source tool and free. Okay, so you file new project. You select the language project, okay, instead of the solution or empty project. You have three options. You're selecting the language project. Okay. And then you configure the location where you want that project to be created. Okay. So here, I'm going to put it here in the demo. I'm going to create a new folder, SoftCon 2023 V2. Okay, use that as a location. And then I say my project is named UI Control V2. Okay, just to make it distinct from the reference that we're going to refer a little bit later, so it gets a little less confusing. So you have to say on the bottom portion, you have to tick or check the create sandbox solution checkbox because you need to test your project, and the way to test your project is to create a sandbox for it. So here you're going to rename your language, and you want to say this is my UI control language. Okay, say V2 again para less confusing. Okay, so this is the setting. Target language project, target the location where you want it to be stored in your file system, create the name, and then the name of the language. So there's a difference between the project and the language. Okay. Once you have that, you'll be faced with this screen. Okay, depending on the layout of your IDE, it could be on the left or it could be on the right. This one. Right away, you'll be faced with the logical view of the project. Okay, I'll try to maximize this so you can see everything. Okay, so you have here, may mga problems na kagad, no? Because we have not built the project yet. So there are two things. Sandbox is called a solution. The way to check that, how you call it, is by going to right click, check solution. The other one is right click, check language. So you have two types of projects already. One is a language and one is a solution. The sandbox is inside the solution. So right away, you'll see that the language project has created a structure for you that refers to the aspects that we mentioned previously. One is the structure, editor, constraints, behavior, type system, and the generator. So for this one, let's build this for a while. So mawala yung red na color. Okay. Just tell me in the chat if you have questions. Okay. Once you build that, notice that uh, the sandbox is also now okay, no? Green. Di na siya nag-red. So let's start with the new concept. The concept that we're going to name is UI view element. Okay, let's rebuild this. Okay, I'm using the rebuild shortcut, but this is equivalent to, by the way, you can see the shortcut that I'm triggering here at the bottom a little bit once you're viewing it in the video later. Okay. So having created that, we can right away see whether we can create it in the sandbox, which is done using new something also. But if you notice, it's not available yet. The reason being, we have to target the instance to be a root element. No? So you do that by going here again. You can see it. I say instead of false, you set it to true, and then you say rebuild. Once you do that, okay, we can go here in the sandbox again. May take a while. Now you can say new UI view element. So you can click that, and right away we have this editor. This is already an IDE for your user. Okay, it may not be doing anything, but this is already an editor. So we have to edit again the the, the concept to reflect the things that we want to model. So part of that is we go back to our reference. We have a type and then a name. Okay, we have a type and then a name. So in order for us to do that, we have to implement an interface called an I name concept. I name concept basically allows you to have a name. So once you rebuild that and you go to your sample, it's going to show you that there's now a name component. My element. Okay, right away, it changes. So dynamic yung change niya. So in order for us to see this at the same time, I'm going to split the screen so you can see the editor for the concept and then the actual sandbox. So let's create an editor for this, which is different from the default, no? Because this is the default, we want to modify it to reflect a little bit similar to what you have seen. So create editor. And here, you are given right away another set of UI where you can change your application. You can say Alt Enter here. I'm doing Alt Enter. Okay. And then you say generate default. Okay. You can modify this and say I just need it to be a name. And then delete the other things that you don't want. So right away you have a name. So once you reveal that, we're running a little bit short in our progress. Okay, notice that your IDE already changed. Now name and element. So we add another property to represent the control. No? So this is the control type. So you add a property which is the same as creating a property for your C# class or Java class. Okay. I hope you're still there. You are still there. Okay. Medyo give me a thumbs up siguro para malaman natin kung wala tayong interaction masyado eh. It could be boring now. Depending on the level of appreciation. We want the control type, okay, the property is control type to represent the type of control. Let's say a button, checkbox, and so on and so forth. No? So in order for us to do that, let's fast track this thing a little bit. Let's create what we call an enumeration. It's going to call this UI control type. An enumeration, if you're familiar, is a set of basically in C#, it's an integral set of integer values, no, with identified by name. So you can say button, you can say checkbox. By the way, I'm using small letters muna dito. So button, checkbox, label, what else? What else? Button, checkbox, label. Bablanko ako, na-stress ako eh. Data grid, uh, drop-down list, sorry. Yun yung critical. Drop-down list. Okay. So you can define the default if you want. You can say button, whatever. We're not defining it for now kasi ayaw naman natin. So once you have defined that enumeration, okay, you can use it in your concept to represent your control type. Notice in the properties, no, if you're going to follow this later, limited ka sa properties, no, na ng Boolean, integer, and string, and enumeration. Okay, this side transform side is a new addition. I don't know yet what it means, but you're just limited to Boolean, integer, string, and then if you add your own custom enumerations, you can see it there. Okay, so right away, once we build this, it should not reflect because we have not created that entry here. We have to create it. It's around this thing with the vertical. We're going to a little bit fast track the creation. So baka hindi ko na ma-discuss pa isa-isa yung mga ginagawa ko. But basically, I'm modifying my editor now to reflect the properties that we want. So name and then type. In the original, the type is on top. So I'm going to move this, shift control up, up. Okay? So I'm doing, ayan, lumabas na rin yung shortcut finally. If you notice down below, you'll see a shortcut of what I'm doing. So now we can build it, and then it should reflect that there's a type and a name. It's taking a little bit of time to compile it. I don't know why. Baka na-stress yung machine ko because there's so many of you. Okay. Now we can say button, and you have a button and an element. We don't have to do anything. MPS provides this as a drop-down list of enumerations already. If you define your concepts to have enumeration as a property. Okay? Libre yan. You don't need to program anything. Now, if we go back again to our sample, we have the type and name. We have approximated it already. The other one is a visualization because if you're going to use this visualization tool, wala namang silbi kung wala siya yung actual visual. No? So we can finish it at this point. Well, pwede. But when you're discussing, if you're a subject matter expert and you're going to use this tool together with your architect or your lead developer, if you're discussing with your client and you want to use this real time, you can, but the customer might not be able to appreciate it, right? So if you add a user interface visualization, then he might be able to appreciate the discussion more because he can visualize what you're talking about. So we need to add an image component to this tool. So let's change this to horizontal layout and then duplicate this. and then add this. Okay, you might say, what did I do? Sorry, nakita niyo ba yung shortcut? Okay, I basically said Control D to duplicate. Okay, and then right away, andyan na siya. Okay, this represents a vertical orientation. This represents horizontal orientation. Okay, so we want to add somewhere inside an image. So we want to add an image. Okay, so we want to target, notice dalawang lalabas, image or image cell. Okay, you have to select the image cell because this is not just a text constant. This is actually presenting an image for you. But if you notice, it changes into dollar image dollar. No, okay. Dollar image dollar represents, hey, tells you that, hey, okay, this is not just an image text, the same way that you have type and name as a constant, but this is an actual component. No? In order for you to see and how to set the various properties of that, you have to go to the View tool windows and open your inspector. Again, that's View tool windows, inspector. Okay, your inspector is, okay, I'll move my inspector a little bit to the right because that's where I'm familiar using this thing. Okay, and I'm going to split my screen into what you see at the bottom right is your inspector. Okay, the inspector is something that you have to use time and time again if you want to modify or inspect or modify your element. Okay, in this case, when I click certain elements of my editor, the the inspector changes accordingly. Okay, so if you are looking at this horizontal collection, it tells you it's Jetbrains MPS lang editor structure cell model collection. If I go here, it tells you it's cell model constant. Can you see the one? Can you do a thumbs up if you can see cell model constant on here? Okay, okay, that's good. That's good. Thank you for that. So I know that you're still listening, you're still awake. So you're seeing cell model constant again, and now you see when I click on the image, it's now cell model image. This is very critical, this is very important. Because if you set the wrong thing, you're actually will be confused and say, why not it's not reflecting on my editor? Because you changed the wrong property. Because some properties may be common and you might be changing the property of a similar one. No? Okay, make sure you click the correct object, and then you modify or you verify that it's really the object that you want to check in the inspector upper left corner. I was actually asking the developers because we have access to the development team, to the contact to the developing team to say, hey, can you make this a little bit bigger so we can easily see it? No, tell me if you want that request also. I might ask them to say, oh, marami nagre-request na you make it bigger because it's not very visible. No, do a thumbs up if you want it bigger. Okay. So this now cell model image. What you want to do with the cell model image is to populate the image file property at the bottom. Okay. So you notice there are certain sections, the style, the common section, and the image cell. The common section definitely is common across. If you click the name, andyan pa rin yung common. If you click the image component, andyan pa rin yung common, pero nagbago yung image cell, which is not available in the constant. No? So nakapansin mo, babago. What we want is to select an image. In this case, I want to select, saan na ba yung demo ko? Icons, no? I want to see an icon for button. Okay, select, just say yes when it prompts you to save, just say yes. And then let's rebuild. Before I rebuild, I'll sort this kasi yan yung presentation. Okay, right away, we have created one normal text, a hard-coded hard-coded text using type or name, a dynamic text, which is the name property, a dynamic value based on enumeration, control type, and then now we're adding an image already. Okay. So if you notice, once we build it on the right side, your screen actually changed. No? Let's see if we can make it a little bit. Can you really see it? Okay. Pilakihan ko ng konti, but I don't know if it's reflected. So now you have the name, my element, but we don't want the name here. Okay, because we just want to see the caption. No? So we delete that, we build it. Now right away, we have your buttons. No? So remember, when you're creating a UI, hindi lang naman pure buttons yan. Diba? Lang naman pure buttons lang, right? So what we're going to do is, okay, let's wait for the build to finish. Okay, now it's my element. I'm also going to add a little bit of dash here. I'm sorry. Okay, because that's to just make a distinction, between the name and the two columns between the one created by the user and the one defined by the system. So we're going to duplicate this. Okay. Okay, but I'll group this first horizontally. Okay. Magkatabi na sila, no? The other one will not be a button, but another one, a checkbox. Okay. Yes. Do it again. This one for drop-down list. Again. And then I'll duplicate this again for, say, a text box. Okay. Just having this, let's try to rebuild. From time to time, your IDE might show this red thing. Just clear it. This one on the bottom. Okay. So now, okay, our screen is showing the button, the checkbox, the drop down, and the text box all together, which is wrong because, which is good kasi nakita natin sila, but it's also wrong because we selected the button, no? So how do we say, if I selected the button, just show me the button and hide the others, okay? Because that's what we need to do. In order for us to do that, we have to uh, set the visibility of certain things. And how is it done? Okay, so you select the item that you want to manipulate and to add a Boolean expression for, to say, am I visible or not? Okay, and this is done again in the inspector. So you select the one for the button. I know it's the button because of this one. And then you say, go to the show if section, press enter, and it's going to give you uh, an area where you can create a Boolean expression. Boolean being a way to say, should I show myself or not? Because it's the show if attribute. No? So here it looks, the structure of this code elements looks like a function, which is actually a function. So you'll notice MPS is going to show you a lot of these things in every portion of the IDE. No, a portion where it's going to provide you as a mini function editor. In this case, what we want to say is that since we know the image should be dependent on the control type, which is a property of the view element. Therefore, we want to say, hey, if the node, okay, which is the proper parameter here, if you notice there's a parameter, Okay, create a thumbs up if you see the node uh, parameter here. Okay, that's good. Thank you for that. You're still awake. You're still not hungry. Okay. Okay. Meron bang ano? Meron bang smiley yan? Yun, may smiley. Thank you. Kasi hindi ko alam kung natatawa kayo or not. Eh. So, know that control type is available. The reason why it's available, okay, is because, again, you have to remind yourself, you're in the editor of the UI view element. So anything inside the UI view element is right away available to the children editor components. Okay. So in this case, the control type is the node actually refers to the UI view element. So every properties or behaviors available to that or you set for that concept is available to you, which is in this case the node control type. And the way to check for it to be matching this particular image is to say if the node control type is equal, notice the very eccentric syntax, no? Medyo kakaiba to. So make sure colon, again, that's spacebar, colon, select EQ, and then enumeration, enter, then spacebar, UI control type, dot, button. Okay. Yeah, medyo ano yan, no? Unique yung ano na yan. Node control type, so the expression is, if our node control type is equal to button, then show me. Okay? So we can copy this to the other images and say, okay, if I am, ano ba to? Checkbox to, right? Checkbox. Okay. The other one, if you're following so far, again, thumbs up naman tayo dyan. This is a drop down. I have a drop down list. Okay. Then I have here a text box. Then there should be a text box, which I don't have yet. So I click this one. So one thing you can do is, this is clickable. Okay? Hindi nyo kailangan hanapin yung enumeration. Click nyo lang to, then you go to your definition. That's how cool this is. And I want to add a text box, right? And then you go back, you say, back is somewhere, navigate back, okay, which is shortcut to my tool here. This is my tool. I have a back. Kasi if you notice, ito yung mga common na ginagawa mo sa ano, kaya ilagay ko na sa shortcut ko. So I want to modify this to be a text box. So let's build this. So far, we're still on time, 1 hour, 7 minutes. I hope we can complete this and you'll be satisfied because you can create this on your own later. And you might want to generate your own custom code. You can, by the way, siguro doon natin gawin yung ano, while we finish a little bit here, let's go to the poll a little bit quickly. Ano na ba yung natapos natin? Okay. Okay, let's go to poll number 3, 10 seconds. What is your current front-end technology? 10 to 15 seconds. What is the current front-end technology? Okay, again, limited tayo dito sa ano, no? So, hindi ko nalagay lahat. Alphabetical yan. So, Angular, ASP.NET Web Forms, MVC ba, Core, or Blazor, Flutter, React, Vue. Ang dami ng others, no? If you are in the others, probably you can mention in the chat kung ano yung others na yan kasi limited talaga yung poll. I wish I have more, no? Kasi ano pa ba? Give more time daw. Ano? Give more, tama ba? Is that what I saw? Give more time, sabi ng aking ano, ghost. Give more time. Okay. Svelte. How do you pronounce that? Svelte, right? Svelte. Is it Svelte? Jojo mentioned Svelte. Is also what? May pagka JavaScript ba yan? I haven't experienced that. Is it closer to React, to Angular, or to something else? Okay. So, countdown. Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. So, let's close the poll. Let's show the poll. Okay. Let's show. Okay. A lot are React. Okay. Ah, others ang marami actually than React, followed by Angular, ASP.NET, a little bit close to Angular, and then you have Flutter, mobile people, and then Vue. Okay, thank you. Close the poll. Okay, thank you for that. So if those are your front end, you could be imagining now, no, how you might want to generate your custom Flutter, you know, code or Angular or React UIs when you show this to your user and then you generate the text. Diba? Exciting, right? So where are we? Let's go to where's my okay now. If you notice, we're validating now the result of what we did, the show if attribute. So now nagre-reflect my property, no? It's now button, and if we do checkbox, it's now checkbox. Very nice, right? Data grid, wala tayong data grid guys now. Might be able to do it here. Drop down list is reflecting, text box is reflecting. Okay, so far so good, right? So what we need to do now is to, okay, I don't want to, when we're testing this, I don't want to keep on changing this sample because I cannot, right now, even if I want to add a new one, I cannot add. I'm doing enter, enter, enter here. It's not doing anything because I'm editing the editor for the single UI view element. What you want to do on the next stage is to create a container for these elements, no? Which we can call for now a control tester. Okay. Our control tester, I'll put it here a little bit. Okay. Our control tester is going to contain UI elements of type UI view element. And it's going to be 0, 2, or more. Okay. Right away, you created a container. You put the collection of custom concepts in the children and not in the properties. Because if you put it here, just to show you, if I want to do it here, it will not show. The UI view element will not show. Okay? Is that clear? Create a paki-thumbs up kung malinaw sa inyo yon. Because that's very critical. That's very critical. You have to know that don't force yourselves to adding your custom, a collection of your custom concepts in the properties because you cannot put it there. You have to put it in the children section. Okay? In terminology of MPS, those are called roles, children roles. Okay? So let's see, let's rebuild this, which is wrong because hindi pala siya magre-reflect. The reason why, bakit hindi natin makikreate yung control tester given what you know already? What are we missing? We're missing something. Meron daw React pala. Ito, React and lead pala. Okay. So here, sorry, we need to set this to true. Diba? Okay, and then rebuild. Para makreate natin yung control tester. And let's see how it's going to show up. Let's go here in the sandbox. Right click on your sandbox. New control tester. So it's now available. Okay, now you see it's different, no? There are these two sets of left angle brackets and then right angle brackets and then ellipses in the middle. This symbol, this symbol is a symbol for collection in MPS. Every time you see this symbol, it tells you, hey, there's a zero too many items expected in there. So you can say control enter or control space, I'm sorry. Control space, say enter. Then you can say button and then okay. Then you have that. Let's say enter button also, but this time cancel. I want to insert. I'm going to type insert. I can put, so I put it on top of the button. Say in, I click the insert. And it inserts on top of that element. No? So I want to say I need a text box here. Username. The text box also, and a password. So right away you have something like a login screen, right? Is it cool? Thumbs up tayo. Kung cool. Okay. So right away you can say, you can if you notice, if you're doing this with your client real time, you can have a discussion, say, ma'am, anong gusto mangyari dun sa screen natin? I want a text box here, drop down here, etc., etc. Let's do a drop down. Okay. So you have username, password. If you want a company there, you have a company, right? So it's very easy to communicate. At the end of the day, this is a communication tool. What you're creating is a communication tool. Instead of you generating your specs and being away for several days, no? Diba? Several days na hindi mo nakakausap yung developer mo. In the meantime, hindi mo alam, tama ba itong ginagawa ko? You can discuss it together with your developer or even your SME, if the SME is available. You say, this is how I visualize the system. Is this correct? In real time. In real time. Okay? So now we're done with a majority of the functionality. But and we have touched the structure aspect, the editor aspect, okay, and then that's basically it. No, we haven't done the constraint behavior, and which is what we're going to do now a little bit. Notice that I'm trying to combine functionality, usefulness of the demo. At the same time, I want to focus a lot on the use of MPS. So could be simple yung sample natin, but we must touch the the structure, the way we're going to use the tool, because I assume you want to use this later. Let's go to the concept of the control tester. Kasi si control tester also has a no name. So want to add name concept. So we want to generate the editor. And then from the editor, we want to generate the default. But we don't want the name to be for us to demo the next aspect, which is the constraint. Constraints is here. Again, I'm clicking the plus sign here. Then constraints, then concept constraints. The constraints, again, if you remember what I mentioned a little bit quickly earlier, constraints are your rules for your concepts. In this case, we want to create, for demo purposes, a constraint on the name. And what we want is that the system, ang gusto ko is, automatic yung control is the first, the control type of the first element within that list. Okay. So, ibig sabihin, for example, in the sample, no, if our control tester is text box, magiging pangalan ng control tester natin is control tester text box, something like that. Okay. So how do you do that? So we want to say, okay, for the meantime, we want to say string. So I can program here almost. No? I'm creating a string variable, and I'm going to output that because that's the output of this small function. Node is the parameter, string is the result. And the text is going to be the control type. Okay, wait. I want to say if node UI elements that size. If the size of your element is greater than 0, meaning there is an element, I want to get the first element and use its control type as part of the text. And it's containing because we need to use the word presentation. What is the presentation? Notice it's different color, it's bold. Presentation is a default property of enumerations. If you go to our control type again, the control type has this blank section, and that's the presentation. This is what, optionally, if you don't fill that in, the one on the left is what's going to show on the user. But if you want to customize it, you can do it. So in this case, I'm making it uppercase. Okay. Space is also allowed, I think, if you want. Okay. So what is going to happen is that, okay, I want for constraint in cases where you want to limit the user from typing something and you want to control the way certain sections appear on the system, you can do that. It's like if you're doing SQL, if you're doing some computed columns, this is something similar to that. No? Na computed yung value ng column. So, you want to do the computation on your own rather than the user creating the computation for you. So in this case, I want to say text is equal to control tester dash append the presentation. And we have to rebuild this for it to reflect on the screen. So now, I shown you a little bit the functionality of constraints. Marami pang capability yung constraints na hindi natin mapapakita ngayon because it's a little bit more complex. And that refers to the one below. You have to search a little bit the MPS tools, the documentation on how to use this referent constraints. No? But the idea is the same. You're limiting the set of values. In this case, it's the list of values. Let's go to our sample and see. Our name is now control tester text box. If I move this around and I move the button around using control shift up, it becomes control tester button. Cool. Thumbs up, please, if you can see it. No? So, constraints allow you to do certain control on your application. No? If you want to not to give the control to the user but to the system in terms of computing certain values of your object. Okay. So here we are finished a little bit. We might not be able to show you the tables. No? Siguro okay na. Punta tayo sa behavior. Behavior, if you want to do behavior, let's go to the editor. By the way, there's another thing that you can take advantage. Look at this. You can create your own custom controls. Okay. Notice these are controls, no? Itong si image is a control, but you can also create your own control. So you have to do is select this and say, go to the light bulb and say extract component. UI, view element, image, editor component. And it becomes its own independent user control. So can you imagine if you're doing a lot of UI elements that you want to reuse multiple times, you can do it here. And now your editor components have multiple values. The editor, which is the root one, always look for the name of the concept followed by the underscore editor, and that is your root editor. These are your child editors, no? In a sense, child editors. No? So we have shown you a little bit some flexibility on creating your user interfaces. Okay. No question so far. Okay. Lago tayong questions yan. Okay. What's next? You have, okay, let's hear. Here, instead of, just to show you what is behavior, instead of creating the expression here, you can convert this expression, because sometimes you want to reuse it, into a behavior. So you go there, create a behavior, press enter, create a Boolean method, let's say is button, and then paste it here, say cancel. Do not say okay, just say cancel because you don't want to add the editor components, just the code that you pasted. Say cancel. And here it's complaining because there's no node parameter. This is this. You have to replace it with this. And then if you go back to that portion, okay, you can replace this with node that is button. So if you build this, it's going to have the same behavior, but you have manipulated your component now to use a behavior rather than a hard-coded expression inside the show if function. So you're now able to be flexible in terms of how you want to your system to behave. No? So now you're now familiar with the structure, with the editor, how to use constraints, how to use behavior. Now, what we want to do is what is the most difficult. But we're going to start with the simplest portion of the type system. The type system is actually the most complex. But here we start with the checking rule. The checking rule is a way for you to say, how do I, what are the rules I want to implement across my concepts, and how do I enforce it? Remember, in the constraints, we enforce a rule that say, I don't want you, user, to create the name yourself. So created a constraint for the name that is computed by the system, but that is only for the control tester concept or class. What we want to do is to create a set of rules that cuts across multiple concepts. And you are inside the check UI element, which is wrong, sorry. We should be in the control tester. Sorry. Should be in the control tester. Go here, and we need to do type system checking rule. We still have 30 minutes in the session, I think. We're okay because the code generator, we can fast track that by copy pasting a few code. Okay. Are you still okay? Can I get a thumbs up if you're still alive and you're still listening? Ang hirap ng ano, no? Ganito pala ang buhay ng vlogger. Hindi mo nakikita yung reaction ng mga ng mga nanonood sa'yo. So here, the checking rule, again, let's do it again para makita nyo. Click the plus, click type system, but I'm already in the type system, sorry. So I click structure, type system, checking rule, and the result is this one. Okay, it already pre-filled some elements for you, which is the name of the concept, because if you start somewhere else, this is blank. This is also blank. So na-detect niya na you're modifying control tester, you're creating a type system for it, type system check for it. So finilapan niya na yan. Okay, so don't Don't be confused later on if you accidentally created a type system but you did not come from the concept plus button dito sa the button na to. Magiging blank yan. All you have to do is populate it with this one and then name your variable. This is now, don't be confused because this is very different from your normal programming. Okay? This is actually the dynamic portion of the behavior. Concept is equal to control tester as variable name. So you can now use control tester. If I name this my control tester, so notice it reflected. No? So because that's a variable name. So you can say, what is the rule that I want to implement for my controls? No? So I want to, for a while, I'll move this to opposite group on the left side para makikita natin itong buong control tester UI natin. So again, don't be confused. I move from the right side to the left side. Okay, we're still in the type system. So on the right side, again, this is a reference para if you're developing something for that screen, naalala nyo yung gagawin nyo. So for this one, what I want to do is to create, for now, something like a very silly rule, no? Medyo funny rule that says, okay, you're not allowed, when you're using the control tester, you're not allowed to use the button as you're not allowed to use anything else as the last element of the list if it is not a button. Only buttons are allowed. Okay, so that is the rule that you want to implement. Let's see how we're going to implement that. So let's implement that for each element in my control tester UI elements. If the element index, the index refers to the location of the element within the list, is equal to the total of the UI elements, which is the size, minus 1 because it's base 0. Therefore, it's the last. This is the last item or element in the list. Then we check if element, which is the UI element, control type, again, familiar sa inyo ito ngayon, is equal to enum control type button. Okay, we're wrong. We're saying not equal to. Let's use the not equal to. Okay. Then we want to say, so we're looping through across the elements. We're checking the index if it is matches the last index of the elements. And if the control type is a button, is not a button, let's say error. Okay, we create an error. The syntax is you must produce the string that will be shown to the user, which is only buttons are allowed as the last element. Sorry, laro tayo ng konti para medyo masaya naman tayo. Okay. Because I don't know if you're still there. Okay. So we have two options in the node to report. The node to report is that node that will be highlighted. If you notice, if you're in Visual Studio or in any IDE, nagkakaroon ng squiggly lines, right? Yung squiggly lines na yun yung may problema. So it's the same thing. Kung sino yung may squiggly lines, it's either the element or the my control tester. We can try first the element. Let's try first the container. Let's build it. And then let's break the rule. Right now, it's not breaking the rule because the rule, the rule that says only buttons are allowed is being followed by your control tester sample. Excuse me. Let's move this around, or better yet, let's create another one. That's a text box. Error. Error. Okay. And then move this around. Move this to the bottom. Let's see what happens. Okay. See what happens. Okay. If you notice, there's the scroll bar is now populated with a very tall red symbol that says error. Only buttons are allowed as that element, which is exactly the message that you put in your uh, check constraint, check rule, type system rule. Okay? And it also highlighted the control tester, which is maybe what you want. If you want to uh, showcase the container as the error, or if you want to showcase the one that has an error, you target that element because we're looping through the elements, no? Remember, we're looping through the elements, and we targeted the element that has the problem. So you rebuild it again, you build it again, and then once you change the rule to reflect that, hey, identify or pinpoint the specific element that has the rule, and then highlight that. So now, if you notice, it's now the text box that is being highlighted. Okay, so far so good. Can I get a thumbs up from you guys if you appreciate this functionality? Because this is one of the most powerful functionalities of MPS. Create a set of concepts, define the relationships or behaviors that you want across those concepts, create a check rule, because even if you don't use the other types of type system rules, ito, which is very complex, some of them very complex, if you just use the check rule, you're good to go. The system maker is using this probably 90% of the time. I don't need use I don't need to use the others because I don't understand some of them. Okay, so it's so with this one, it's effectively the same as if you're going to compare this with an actual programming language. It's like saying, hey, a for if you're creating a for each syntax, and you say there should be this element in your for each syntax, and you're not feeling it, so I'm going to show you an error message. So it's something like that. Okay, or if any other rules that you're seeing in the squiggly lines, you can visualize it as being a check rule in NPS. Okay, so far so good, and we only have one thing left that's critical. The others are not very critical, so baka hindi ko na siya ma-complete, but we still have around 23 minutes, which is a good time frame for us to focus on the last element and others that we might be able to include. And that is, of course, what everyone is waiting for, the code generator, right? The code generator. But before we go there, ayoko nakakita ng red dito. So, natanggalin ko itong control tester. So, if you notice, if you remove it right away, real time, mawawala yung squiggly element natin. Okay, very cool. It's very one of the best features of this tool. Okay, so let's go to our, where are we? We are inside this control tester, control tab, the view element. We are now in that portion of code generation. Sorry, medyo tune out na ako. Let's go to code generator, and the code generator has two capabilities. Okay, mostly a generator component, not necessarily code generator, has two functions. One is to transform your model, because what you're creating is basically a model. Okay, and a generator can do one of two things. One is to transform your model into another model, which is also a set of concepts. Okay, or transform your uh, concept or model into text right away, which is normally what we want. gusto natin like in this case, we want to generate HTML right away. Again, if you're doing Flutter, if you're doing React, Angular, and so on and so forth, this is where you can imagine now, I want to generate this set of codes when I do button, or kulang si sir ng ano, meron other elements si Flutter na wala rito sa sample can. Then you create that. Then you create the corresponding code generator for it. So the same way with the editor constraints and type system, if you targeted, if you have your concept open already, you can go to the plus button here and say generate a text gen, and then click concept text gen. Okay, and right away you will be provided with this template. Okay, I'm going to also show you a little bit the code gen for UI view element. The UI view element, by the way, we want to make this false because at this point we don't want to create what's this, independent element which is not inside the control tester or a page. Okay, so hindi na siya ngayon root component. And the reason why I created UI view element and tag it as root as false is because to show you that when you create a text gen for a non-root element, the text gen is very different. So I move it to the opposite side, on the right side. If you, on the left side, you have your control tester. On the right side, you have your UI view element. Notice that they are different. Okay? The non-root element cannot generate text files. Okay, so we talk about text generators being able to convert model to another model and model to text. A text gen component now, which is also a form of generator, a text gen is a text generator, which also has two types of presentation. Okay, one is in-memory presentation, and the other one is a text file presentation. Okay, so right away, if you notice, there's an extension option here, which we're going to say HTML. Right? You can even override the default for the file name, which we're not going to do because the default is what is the name of the node, then generate that as the name of the file. Then append the HTML extension. Okay? And the way for us to, so basically ignore the UI view element because we're not going to do that. Just focus on the control tester because this is the root element. And then we press control space enter for us to be provided again with our code editor. And in this one, the default operation is the append operation. The append allows you to say, what do you want? Just a text. Welcome. Okay, let's try that. And see what will happen. And the way to trigger that. Okay, let's put this again to the left side, move to the opposite group. Element. Okay, the way to trigger that. So again, we created the text generator for the control tester, and we want to say, hey, put the word welcome when you output the text. And I'm going to say, okay, select your sandbox page, and then you say, there are two things. One is right click, preview generated text. Let's do that. So right away, you see there's welcome. This is the in-memory text file. So there's no actual text file created yet. This is virtual text file. The physical file that is generated happens when you, so I'll close this for now. Okay, so you've seen the in-memory representation of the text file. The physical file happens when you do a build of your sandbox. So when you say select, you can click on any element of your page, or you can click your here, you can click here, or sorry, here in the sandbox. When you say right click, rebuild sandbox. Okay, so when we do that, rebuild successful, there's a file generated which you can see when you go to uh, project files, sandbox, source gen, I think, and this is the one. Okay, this is again, this is your ulit. Click ko, baka hindi nyo nakita. It's going to the right side. Right click, and it's welcome. So the text file is created under the source underscore gen folder of your sandbox project or your solution. Note again, remember, this is your language, this is your solution. The sandbox is inside your solution sandbox, and underneath it's creating automatically the source underscore gen folder, and then corresponding folders, and then the file itself. Okay, so now you can check whether you have generated the correct one. So let's go to the actual code that we want to generate, which is something that should come. Let's delete this file now. Let's do an append. We have 15 minutes. I think that's a good time. And it's node, select the node property, node or property option. And it's going to say node that generate HTML, which is non-existing. So we have to generate that as a behavior. So we're going to create a behavior that returns a string, because a string is what we want to append to the text file, and the function is generate HTML. So we're going to say text. Okay. By the way, I think in Java, no, I'm not a Java guy, by the way, if you notice. So there's also a kamukha din siya ng C#. There's a string builder pala. I just found out. There's a string builder class that you can say, you can use. It's very similar to C#. And you say it's sb dot, sorry, append. And you say welcome. So it's going to produce the same thing. Okay, but for now, our HTML should be coming from uh, the UI elements. No? It's not going to be from the text gen, but from the behavior. We want to make it come from the behavior. And it's going to be coming from a function also in the element get element HTML. So here, just to make it a little bit simple, I'm using, mas madali kasi sa akin ito. You can replace this later when you're doing it. Okay. So what we want to happen is that from the control tester behavior, what we want to happen is that we're going to loop again in the, so far, can we have a thumbs up there to say you're still following? Okay. Okay, that's good. That's good. So for each, what we want to do is that we're going to delegate the code generation of the HTML for each individual element to the UI view element itself. Because the UI view element knows what type of control type it's going to generate. The control tester should be isolated from that responsibility. So here, what we want to do is sb10 item dot get each element HTML. Okay? So, welcome. Lagyan lang natin yan just to welcome to Jetbrains MPS. Then get HTML, we go there, we click it, then we go here. And here, for in the meantime, what we can do is say, okay, enum, there's a function called enum switch. And the enum switch is uh, can check for enumerations. It's like a switch that's customized for enumeration. Because I want to check, depending on the control type, if it is a button, generate button, and so on and so forth. So from here, it's basically copy paste, checkbox. We will improve this in a while. We still have 10 minutes. But basically, you get the idea. Checkbox, text box. Hindi ko na compute yung iba because I just want to show you how we're splitting the responsibility from the container to the content. And then the content has the knowledge to generate the actual HTML. So let's do in-memory code generation. No, not yet. Why? Because I generated, I'll remove this because it's processing the text gen. I delete this. You can do that also, but I don't want to for now. I want it to use the function that we created. So again, view. Wait. Hindi pa pala nag-work, sorry. Generate HTML, let's build it again. So hindi pa nag-compile siya, pero from time to time it happens. No? Hindi pa properly called yung syntax, napansin nyo naka-red siya. Pero, umandar siya, hindi siya nag-error. Little bit of a challenge there. See? Okay. So now, we have welcome to JetBrains MPS text box, button, button, button. Okay? So we'll just improve this. We'll just improve this code because we're running out of time. Just right. Going to dadaya tayo ng konti. We're going to copy code from the other project that I created to simulate the demo. Okay? Para medyo mas maganda yung output natin. So that I copied the set of codes from another project. I'm going to paste it here. Press enter. I then paste. Again, I say cancel because I don't want any unnecessary elements to be pasted. Just the text. So what I pasted is get element. No, that's the original one. Get HTML. So this is the one I want to replace the call from the original call. Instead of get element HTML, I want it get HTML, which is the revised code that we generated. Okay. So basically what it does is just create some functions. No? So this function is a get button HTML, which is an HTML for buttons. So because The function says, if my control type is a button, call the get button HTML, pass it a clean version of the name, and then the raw version of the name. We need the clean version of the name without the spaces and all, because sometimes you type a name that has spaces. We want to remove those. That's the clean version. And then we pass that element or that string as a parameter to the function. And then we generate our input type button HTML, etc., etc., etc. HTML. Okay. So again, this just to confirm, from the text gen, we're calling the control texter generate HTML. Inside generate HTML, we're looping through the HTML elements, the UI elements, and then we're calling the get HTML function of each individual element. And then the get HTML checks the control type and then calls the corresponding element. We have updated the get button, get checkbox, and then get label HTML. Let's see if it will build, no? Because it's coming from a different project. We have 5 minutes. Do you have any questions? No questions so far. In the mukhang either natulog na kayo or malinaw sa inyo yung discussion. Set up the smiley there. Mukhang absorb naman. Okay, so what we're doing, okay, medyo kaka-problem yung ating, there's a bit of a bug with the layout. I need to change a little bit the layout of the MPS. I'm going to, minsan nahihirapan siyang mag-split. Kung split window niya, nag-hang eh. So I'm going to ignore this. This is not part of the demo. This is a hack to fix the bug of MPS. I cannot move this before, no? Bago ko binago. So nahihirapan siyang mag-split. So again, what we want is generate the HTML by doing this, and then this is the output. Welcome to JetBrains input type. Okay. So of course, may unnecessary. Try natin linisin quickly bago natin. Tanggalin natin to. Ano pa yung problem? Okay, yun lang. Kulang pa tayo ng Canopia. Kulang tayo ng Canopia ang code ng control tester, I think. Gandahan natin ng konti yung HTML nung container. Si control tester, pagandahin natin ng konti yung code niya. Kinapin natin yung sa kabila. Medyo nilagyan lang natin ng HTML, body, div, etc. etc. Okay? Para medyo presentable naman. So, hindi na kaya sa inyo pagka generate natin yung so just on time, just 2 minutes or so. So, when we build this is what we have. Effectively, it's a real HTML file. Let's build it again so we can see the file system of the project files. I'm going to open it in the browser So I'm opening it ng File Explorer para makita ko lang yung file. Then I'm clicking it to launch it inside the browser. Oh, it's this one. Ito yata nag-build. Again, let's build. And then I'll click it, and this is the result. Okay. Of course, in the one I showed you from System Maker, may mga CSS pa yan, etc. etc. Okay. So it's a okay and cancel buttons. Okay. So again, if you're doing, hindi natin napakita yung HTML nung drop down and all, but it's such a matter of modifying your code to generate the corresponding input type syntax and all. Also, if you go back before we close, I'll show you that in the final version here, once we generate in the file version, there's an option to do something else, like group with previews, etc., etc. Basically, this feature is a way to make horizontal alignments of your. What's this? Sorry, I'm not seeing my AirMeet screen. Okay, so, so okay. So again, may mga additional features lang dito sa final na there's a way to lay out automatically the buttons such that if you have consecutive buttons, lumalabas yung group with previous checkbox. And what the system will do is make them horizontal. So those are additional tools, features that not related to MPS, but depending on the logic of what you want to happen with your user interface. So that's the presentation, and we are just right on time. Okay, and thank you for attending. We have someone from PSIA. Hello, Cyril.
Hi, Sir Nolly. Thank you very much for that session. I'm pretty sure everyone has a lot of questions, but due to the limited time that we have, they can always approach Sir Nolly. So, audience, attendees, don't forget you can always reach out to Sir Nolly in this air meet. You can also meet up with him at the lounge table to ask him further questions. So, Sir Nolly, thank you very much for the presentation. It was very insightful and packed with a lot of information. In the meantime, I'll be asking you to pose for a very quick photo op. I'll be turning my camera off and my microphone as well. I'll be back right with you.
Shoot ng picture. Hello. Is it? Uh, sa, uh, should I?
Yes, it's all good, Sir Nolly. Thank you so much for.
You took a picture.
Yes, we did.
Okay. So that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Are they still there?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
The
So thank you,
audience are
everyone.
still
So
here.
if you have questions again, I don't know, Cyril, kung saan timetable sa lounge. I don't know if I can find it. So,
Well, if
so
you
if you have
actually,
questions,
yeah. So you can find it definitely in the lounge. They will join you once they see you sitting at a table. And delegates, don't forget that Sir Nolly shared his details at the start of his presentation. So don't forget to reach out to him if you have further questions. Again, Sir Nolly, thank you so much for your time and being
You're
with
welcome.
us.
And thank you too for inviting me. And thank you to all the
Have a
attendees.
great day. See
I
you at
hope
the
you
next
meet happy.
session.
Thank you. Bye-bye.